And we're back with some NBA observations right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. Truly appreciate you joining us. As always, don't forget to make sure you like and subscribe. Subscribe today to get the latest notifications on when we go live with the latest NBA observations. And he is back. Glad he's feeling better indeed. Please go ahead and check out the great work that he does each and every time out at the J Notes right there for you. It is, of course, Matt John. Matt, great to have you back and glad you are on. Well, you're back up and you're back up around and then feeling a whole lot better.
Yeah, I still don't feel 100%, but I feel just well enough that I definitely feel comfortable being on here. So thanks for having me back.
No worries. Great. Always great to have you here talking the NBA. We're down to roughly the final 15 games of the season for most of these teams. So I guess what you could say, for lack of a better term, the home stretch per se for these teams.
Yep, yeah, pretty much. So, and you know, whenever this happens with a loaded draft class, we see teams they come up with excuses to hold guys out.
Oh, so I see they're getting more creative all the time. NBA tries to correct one thing, they find another way to circumvent it. So yeah, it's interesting to see how that is parlayed. But I do want to go ahead before we get into the race towards the bottom, which I know is an interesting story, plus also your thoughts on Bam Adebayo's 83, and if someone may approach Wilt's record of 100. One of Rick Wilt's records has gone by the wayside with SGA scoring in the consecutive game modes as far as 20 points or more in consecutive games. So he's already passed that. But with the action going on near the top of the standings right now, I mean, we're looking at Oklahoma City Thunder reclaiming their lordship at the top of the overall food chain. Since last we spoke, Detroit was actually flirting with that and actually ahead of Oklahoma City Thunder by percentage points. But in recent days, Detroit has been only a so-so team, and in its place, Boston has come into the picture with the arrival of Jason Tatum. They've actually played a lot better, in recent weeks. They're now on the verge of possibly even, still approaching. They're still 3.5 games out, but there's a possibility they can catch Detroit. But a lot of the people, including FanDuel and other sites, are now picking Boston out of the East. But in the West, yes, while OKC seems to start now really finding its stride, San Antonio, oh, by the way, has just been just as dominant. This is shaping up as a very interesting hierarchy at the top of both the East and the West.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that we bring up the Celtics because they are coming off a homestand where they just faced San Antonio, they just lost, and now they're going to face Oklahoma City later tonight. And so it's very interesting to see how they match up there. They lost to the Spurs, but it was actually pretty impressive how they were able to keep pace with them despite losing Jaylen Brown for I'd say over half the game. And obviously that whole ejection is kind of an issue unto itself. But I think what's amazing to me is that I think the Spurs, everyone's going to bring up their lack of experience, but I think that there is a fair argument that they kind of built the right team around Wembanyama, that he is kind of an alien unto himself, that he could prove people wrong, but it will all depend on how much things translate in the playoffs. In Boston's case, I do think there's a lot more credence to Detroit's not ready compared to San Antonio's not ready. They're going to be better as time goes on, but it will be the experience. But anyway, with Boston, I think that it's just that they just as a team have elevated themselves and then just got Jason Tatum back. And even though he definitely he somehow looks like someone who's going to need a minute to get better, but is also someone who looks like he's back like he never left, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So, like, I'm looking forward to see what I'm really looking forward to seeing if we get a Thunder versus Celtics finals, because I think that's what everyone's been looking forward to.
Well, like you said, they're going to get a taste of it after we speak here later tonight, as this is being recorded. But with that, though, again, with Tatum coming back, his shot hasn't been back fully as of yet. Still struggling from the field, but just to have him back, another body out there, someone with his athletic gifts, can also, as a playmaker as well. That part of his game has been severely underrated. What he can do to facilitate for his team, and then also the fact that at 6'10", he can provide some size underneath and provide some rebounding as well. Just the fact that he could do all these things till he gets into the shape where he can at least be at 80 to 85% of what he once was is a scary proposition.
That very, I definitely agree with that. I also think that like his jumper hasn't been, hasn't necessarily been consistent yet, but I think what he's trying to let teams know is, no, I'm still going to shoot these shots. And the one thing you don't want me taking these shots. Like teams don't want to lose to the Celtics because Tatum went off. So like him taking the shots that he used to even before he got hurt, he's trying to let opponents, like, I think it's part of a strategy of just like letting, because opponents, obviously they want to limit what he does, try to slow him down, and that opens up opportunities for his teammates, which is what Tatum is very good at. Is his gravity as a player helps his teammates play better when he's on the floor. So I do like, yes, his jumper isn't really going in yet, but he's still like even from the jump of the Mavericks, they were trying to make sure, no, Tatum is not beating us. We have to make sure the ball's out of his hands or that he's not going to take those jumpers. So I think he's trying to prove more than anything, without getting in Boston's way, that he really is the same impactful player. And I think he's on the right track.
Once again, it's Matt John. Go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the J Notes right there for you. Part of the fan-sided experience right there for you, right there at the J Notes. Again, uh, I'm not going to doubt Boston as far as concerned, because they're gelling at the right time. We doubted them early in the season. We doubted them coming into the season that it would be a lost season for them, or a gap year as the vernacular that is often used. And they have proven anything but. And that is to their credit, with starting with the coach, starting with Brad Stevens, starting with the players that they've been able to go ahead and work with. So yeah, I mean, if it's bad for us Lakers fans, I can tell you that for sure. But there is something to admire about what's going on with Boston as far from a basketball perspective. And again, they're going to be a force in the playoffs. I understand it's about seeding and matchups and all that concern. Right now, they would be facing off against the New York Knicks. Yeah, New York Knicks is a game ahead of or game and a half ahead of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So they're facing off against the New York Knicks. How do you feel that Boston matches up? Because I don't want to disregard Detroit, and we'll get to them in a second, but how do you feel that the Celtics match up with the Knicks, who were commonly thought of as the favorite in the East going into the season?
I honestly can't get a grasp on the Knicks. I don't understand them at all. Like one game, they're beating the crap out of the Nuggets, but then last night, I mean, they beat the Jazz pretty handily, but the first 60% of that game, the Jazz were controlling it, and then they remembered, oh yeah, right, we're tanking, so we have to make sure that doesn't come to fruition. Like they have these pretty impressive wins, all things considered. They even beat Boston a little while ago, but then they have these like demoralizing losses, and I'm just like, what is this team? Like, are they real? They have the talent and the structure to be a threat, but or I should say they have the talent to be a threat, but then they just lack the consistency to really make me think, oh, this team is gonna be at the top. As far as like how they match up with the Celtics, like last year's playoff series was so confusing to me because Boston twice had a 20-point lead over them and lost it. So that it's one of those, were the Knicks the better team, or did the Celtics just unbelievably blow it? Because like even after they lost Tatum, the Celtics won the next game against the Knicks. Like it's so it's hard for me to kind of pinpoint what is going to happen, because the Knicks inconsistent. Like if the Knicks look like the team that beat the Nuggets in Denver, Like, if that's the team they're going to be, I'd say that they are probably the pick to win the East. But they, time and time again, have that really bad loss where I'm just like, I'm not a better, and I'm not a better, so I wouldn't bet on them.
But Detroit is the one that people seem to be cooling off on, even though they're still at the head of the East. And
Mhm.
everybody in Detroit would tell you, don't count out the Pistons. But they're so heavily reliant on Cade Cunningham to drive that team. And I think one of the things that they'll have to go ahead and look at in the offseason is trying to find a second facilitator for that offense to go ahead, just like what they do in OKC, where it's either Williams, SGA, Williams to go ahead and key in that offense. A little to lesser extent to what the Lakers do as far as with the the type of facilitators that they have. They'll need to do that because again, so much right now is on Cade Cunningham. Maybe we're starting to see a little bit of burn away from Cade Cunningham. I mean, we talked about him being third place mentioned in the MVP voting if it was like when you at the time that you were last year. Now, kind of maybe it's changed a little bit. I mean, Victor Wembanyama has come on strong as long because he's still eligible to be in that consideration. But yeah, right now this Detroit team, it's worried. They're nice, deep, quality list of players that they have. Of course, they have really a lot of players that could do a lot of different things. Their shooting is a little bit of concern. But yeah, I mean, Jalen is done a great job as their center for the future going forward. But yes, it all rides on really how Cade Cunningham goes is how this team will go in the playoffs.
I think teams are going to deploy that same kind of defense that they will in the Celtics with Tatum. They're just going to say, we dare anyone not named Tatum to beat us. They're going to say, we dare anyone not named Cade Cunningham to beat us. Like, it's a great story, but if they prove that, nope, we clearly are not ready for the big time yet, that great story just comes to an end, and they do have to go back to the drawing board.
We'll see. Again, just thoughts at the East right there, and then the top of the West right now, because there's like four teams right there with each other in the Lakers, Minnesota, Houston, and Denver. You put right now in a logjam. You've got Phoenix right behind that, but at the head of the food chain is San Antonio and OKC. And right now, it's clear. It's clear that those two teams have different agendas right now as far as what they're working on, what they're looking at, and what they're gearing up for the postseason. Like you, I am not overlooking the experience factor as far as San Antonio is concerned because I do think San Antonio, in its current form, can still go a long way. I'm not as total convinced as everyone else out there is, or so many people who are out there who think that the experience factor is really going to bite the San Antonio Spurs with their young players like Wembyama, Harper, and Castle. I think with Fox, but to a larger extent, Harrison Barnes. I think he is really a key for them. What he has been through with multiple times in that championship area, in that championship slot, and his experience, I think, will bring a lot to this team. Not necessarily from a points or rebound standpoint, but what he can tell and communicate to this team on what to expect going through a postseason run.
And it's so hard not to be happy for him because it feels like it's been a long hiatus between his glory days with the Warriors, and they cast him out for Durant, and how now he's right back in there after being with the Mavericks, Kings, what teams that at best when he was there were just mediocre. But yeah, I do think that having some like Barnes will be, I think he will be key in that locker room, but he's also like he's consistent at what he does, and I almost feel like outside of the experience, he is a good model of just being consistently good at what you do. Like, and I think something that he will key into these young players is don't try to overextend yourself in the playoffs. Like, your opponents count on mental mistakes because you haven't been there. Like, just keep they will force you out of your comfort zone. Don't try to do things that aren't in your skill set. Like, just keep playing at this pace, and we will they'll make adjustments. Things get tougher, but we have the talent. We have the coaching staff. We have the familiarity to combat that. Like, I do think San Antonio, they might be the most interesting team in the playoffs because it really could go so many different ways for them, even with all they've accomplished this season.
It is Matt John. Please go ahead and check out what he's doing today at the J Notes on Fansided. Go ahead and check it out. What he's doing with his great articles right there. For he's got quite a few to choose from. So please go ahead and dig into what he's working on with the J Notes. I will say this though, when it comes to one side, it is 15 games left. And while the jockeying for position, especially with what's going on the top four in the East, and the 3 through 7 slots. Yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 3 through 7 slots. Because I'm not discounting Phoenix. If they go on a run, they can make things interesting. So yes, while all that's interesting in the last 15 games of the season, then there is the probably the most interesting battle in the NBA for the last 15 games of the season, and that's the race to the bottom. Because right now there's several teams that still, with everything goes right, or maybe we should look at it, everything goes wrong, that they have a chance to go ahead and get a better position going forward as far as a higher percentage for them in the lottery. With Indiana, Sacramento, Washington, and Brooklyn all vying for that top spot of the, or bottom spot in this case, as far as it's concerned. So it's interesting how the last 15 games will be leading itself out. I mean, Washington, obviously, they become a laughing stock after what happened with Bam the other day, which we'll go into to close out the show. Indiana, they've lost 10 in a row, which again, is just so hard to believe that one injury has made Indiana go from the top of the penthouse to the bottom of the attic. And it's just interesting how that dynamic has worked out when their team outside of Halliburton has been relatively healthy. Or was Turner that big of a deal, losing him that big of a deal as well? That's another interesting thing. Sacramento's been a dumpster fire. Again, talked about Washington. Brooklyn, 5 rookies. I don't think any of them, maybe Saraf has made a slight impact, but I think all 5 have been underwhelming from what I've seen. Utah comes next, and they're in their own little battle as far as that next slot with number 5 through, I think probably I'd say between them and Memphis, between Memphis, New Orleans, Dallas, and Utah, they're in that next group, man. That's interesting because with where they get placed, it could also lead to some teams possibly losing some picks.
Yeah, there was actually a really funny joke I remember earlier in the season. There was a meme of just like it was the Nets, Wizards, and Pacers all being like, "Yeah, we're sucking, but this is by design," and the Kings are like, "Wait, you guys are losing on purpose?" And so I always thought that was funny because the Kings didn't intend for it to be this way, but they kind of fell backwards into putting themselves in this position. Like I don't like even this offseason, I don't even know what they're going to do. Are they going to trade Sabonis and Levine? I assume they're going to waive DeRozan, but anyway, like the tanking race is always so interesting to me to see what stops the other team's pull just to make sure that they are as bad as possible. Like those first 4 teams, they are well ahead of like Utah and New Orleans and Dallas and Memphis. So I think it's fair to say those are the bottom 4. Like Utah's definitely kind of like the biggest wild card because, or no, I shouldn't say Utah. I should say New Orleans is because that's the one team that no matter what, they've lost their pick. So they don't even really care about,
And they're trying to win, Matt. And they've actually won 7 out of their last 10, and they're still mired in that quagmire.
Like, so I predict that New Orleans by the end will do everything it can to like get out of the top. I think by season's end they'll be worse than Utah, Dallas, and Memphis. But I'm excited to see like what kind of twists and turns go about. Something that people forget, like the Wizards, the last game of the season, they had the tiebreaker edge over the Jazz, I think. Or, nonetheless, they were ahead of the Jazz in the tanking standings, and then they won on a buzzer beater. They won their last game, and that gave the Jazz the best odds. So, and then the Jazz get the 5th pick, and they get Ace Bailey, and who the Wizards wanted, and the Wizards get the number 6 pick. So it is funny to see, and I do assume that these teams that are all bottoming out, they're not going to lose all their games. They're not like they're going to have to win some of them. So I'm intrigued to see, like, even last night the Jazz against the Knicks. The Jazz's young guys were actually playing really well in that game before they were like they kicked it into high gear of like, yeah, we got to lose this. We can't beat the Knicks. Like we beat the Warriors because they don't have Steph or Butler or anyone one of those guys. But the Knicks, they're not undermanned and they're trying to win. So we kind of have to bench some of our better young talents. So it's I I enjoy, like, even tonight. Ivica Zubac is making his debut for the Pacers. Is that going to be the only? Are they going to? Is he going to get the same treatment as JJJ did with the Jazz, where he plays for 3 games and then they're like, okay, he's done. Like, we're just giving our fans a taste of what's going to happen next year.
We'll see what happens, but he is in there as we speak, playing against the Phoenix Suns. But you're right. I mean, because I really like Sensabaugh. I've told you this before, Sensabaugh and Filipowski as a duet coming off the bench for your guys going forward. And they're getting the starting position now. And I know Sensabaugh has a tendency when he's hot, he can get sizzling hot from the behind the arc, and he showed that last night. And I could just see Will, Will Hardy just like, no, 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 please don't, please don't. Oh, he went in again. Oh, I feel bad for him because he has to put up this facade, man. He has to put up this facade, find creative ways to lose. I mean, obviously the NBA targeted Utah in the first place for a lot of these tank circumvention things that we've seen. Um, and Will Hardy's response, the deadpan response that he's been given to the press in regards to it, everybody in this room knows what's going on. And it's just, I feel bad for Will Hardy. I just hope that once your team that you cover, the Utah Jazz, gets that opportunity to come together, like we talked about a couple times ago, a couple episodes ago, when you and I talked about the future after the Triple J trade, about how it could look for the Utah Jazz. I'm hoping he will get the same kind of latitude once they've got everybody, all the talent they have around them. He's given that kind of latitude to go ahead and explore, to be able to coach, to be able to get an opportunity to win year after year after year, like he was told to lose year after year after year. If that makes sense. You see what I'm saying? Is like, once he's given a team to win, I hope he's given the clearance to go ahead and do just that.
Yeah, when Utah has said, okay, do the best you can, Hardy has proven, no, you give me the right ingredients, I'll make it work. When the Hardy era first started, Utah was the number 1 seed in the West, like the first 20 games or so, which everyone knew that wasn't going to last. But it was a good hint of, like, the kind of coach that he can be. He also has experience. He was an assistant coach on Ime Udoka's coaching staff that made it all the way to the NBA Finals. When I look back, I actually think that was a pretty loaded coaching staff. But Hardy is, like, he's also been in the most fortunate situation where he's the coach of a team that has made it clear, oh no, we're tanking. So even if we stink, like, we're not going to blame you. But they're definitely, next year, we're finally going to see who the real Will Hardy is. And I'm looking forward to that, because I am a Hardy optimist. And I think that he is going to prove pretty quickly, if all goes well for them, how good of a coach he is.
We'll wait and see, my friend. But again, the race toward the bottom is going to be just as interesting as to the race up on top. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it will play itself out. Right now, just by the smallest of margins, the Indiana Pacers do have the worst record, followed closely by the Kings and the Wizards and the Nets. So it'll be interesting in the final 15 games who can tank the best, and we'll have to wait and see. But before we head on out, speaking of tanking teams or playing tanking teams, Miami played Washington recently, and Bam Adebayo ended up in what I called, in that second half, one of the most unwatchable second halves in history, especially that fourth quarter, which was truly just abysmal. James Naismith might have been rolling over in his grave. I'll just say that. But uh, he got 83, and you have to give him credit for getting 83. I know that people already here in LA and Lakers fans, I've already seen and heard interacted, putting an asterisk and all that on it. Of course, is it as pretty and pristine as Kobe's was? No, because the Lakers were down for quite a bit of that game. So they needed at most of Kobe's 81 points until that finally in the fourth quarter, they overwhelmed Toronto and it just became the race to how many points they could get, that Kobe could get. But this game was over at the tip off. And to see it, it play itself out. The first couple quarters, especially that first quarter, is legit. He was hot. He hit his shots absolutely fine. No problem with that. It's that fourth quarter where the intentional fouls were made by Miami just so they could get him the ball. Washington, the Generals, I call it, or you could say the Lizards, or what they've been called, the Washington Lizards, because Ban McMahon, it put an L in front of both of them, whatever you want to call them, trying to double and triple team him, quote unquote, because I saw those are some of the worst double and triple teams I've ever seen in my entire life. It just absolutely was atrocious. Bam was 7 of 22 from 3 and 36 of 43 from the line. He's actually very efficient in the key, which is going to get lost in this. And, it's all the criticism amongst all the criticism. What's going to be lost is that he was so efficient in the key or below the arc. That's going to be forgotten. What's going to be remembered is the fact that he kept chucking up threes at a 30% rate and kept getting to the free throw line, being given gift after gift after gift by the refs and Washington. Your thoughts on it, my friend, on how much you take from Bam's 83-point game?
I mean, like, I get why there's criticism. And at the same time, if you have the chance to break a record, you take it.
Oh, of
Like,
course. And
so
I can't blame him for that, but yeah.
And the other thing is that, like, the realm of possibility of someone surpassing Kobe, I'm sure Lakers fans are like, yeah, I'm sure that would happen. But Bam Adebayo, like, he's not a scorer. Like, for all the things he is really good at, you wouldn't. He's among the players you would least suspect, despite how good he is, of surpassing that record. Like, and to your point, like, what that performance reminded me of was when Devin Booker hung 70 on the Celtics back in 2017. Here's the funny thing about that game. Phoenix was never close in that game against Boston. And Booker kept living at the free throw line. That's how he put up his numbers. I think the Celtics won by like 22. And Booker, I think his point total was like 75% of the Suns' scoring total. Phoenix was terrible that season. So it does kind of call into question, like, I get that they celebrated it afterward. It's a huge deal. If a player puts up 70 points or 83, it's a huge deal. But there comes a point where just like, is this really that historic of a performance if your team stinks, or if the other team stinks by design, like the Wizards? Like, and it's definitely one of those rare circumstances. It's one of the, I guess to me, it's not, I applaud it. I'm kind of like, yeah, that's awesome. I actually kind of like watching these records be broken. At the same time, I get why people question them. Like, another thing that I'm going to say is, like, being from the Boston area, watching the 2007 Patriots, the team that almost went undefeated, towards the end there, everyone knew they weren't just trying to go undefeated. They were trying to catch all the records. And that's what opponents like kept banging on. It's how they almost lost so many times was Brady and Moss wanted to catch the record for quarterback and wide receiver, and that made them predictable. Like, so it's so I guess like that really does question the validity of the record itself when everyone knows what you're trying to do. Like, or how that, like, getting back to Bam, like, I'm glad he did it, and I'm sure he's never going to approach it again. Like, but like, I cool, but I'm not going to be like, oh, but this proves that Bam's a better scorer than Kobe. Of course it doesn't. Like, you'd be a fool to suggest otherwise.
Well, like you said, he's not known as a scorer. He only averaged 20 points in a season once in his career. It's all been in the teens, except for this season, because he, going into the game, Matt, he was 18.9. In fact, it was something that because earlier this week I was on with Legend on an NBA observations the day before he goes to 83, and we were actually covering the mediocre teams, and we hit the Miami, and we targeted, and he specifically targeted Bam Adebayo as far as being a guy who you'll always feel like he left something on the table as far as what he thought he could do. He thought he could do more as far as his career. So that's what we both thought. And we talked about, how he's we think he could score more. We think he had the ability to do more offensively. Well, it's funny. Somebody must have told him that you needed 83 points to get to average 20 points in a game, because I looked that night after he scored 83 and he's at 20.0 right on the dot. So must hey, you need 83 points to get over 20 a game again. All right, okay, I know what I need. But yeah, it just does not really resonate, and I don't think it'll really resonate as well as Kobe's 81 or Wilt's 100.
Yeah, pretty much. It also reminds me of like, didn't Shaq and David Robinson, like, weren't they competing for a scoring title? So one scored like 70 or something along the lines, and then the other.
Robinson scored 71. Yes.
Yes, and I think so, and I think that was to get the scoring title to help his
Mhm.
MVP case. So again, it really does go into, is this really a big deal if we know like what the real reason is behind it? Like, he did the 80, like the Heat still would have won that game even if he hadn't scored 83. Like, this was a game that they knew they were going to win. So it's one of those, yeah, the circumstances made it so that if the opportunity was there, of course they were going to chase it. But against a team like the Wizards, a team that's, they probably will be better next season, but because they stink by design, how valid is this?
I certainly hope with Trey Young and Anthony Davis they'll be better next season. I don't know if Anthony Davis will stay upright. Take it from somebody who watched Anthony Davis for several years. I don't know what the future may hold for Washington, but again, you have two very high priced players now that are expected to be healthy on the court and to lead those young kids into a more positive direction. So we will wait and see. But yeah, I'm just going to say this again. Congratulations to Bam. Um, it was a game. Again, especially that first half. He should be proud of the first half, even into the third quarter. After that, it's just a farce, and I'll just leave it for that. But he should not be ashamed of what he did accomplish, because again, if you or me or anybody else playing out there, we're going to go for the gusto as well. We're going to take whatever's given to us as far as the points. We're not going to say, oh well, maybe I shouldn't, it's against the Washington Wizards, maybe I shouldn't pass Kobe's record. No, we're all going to go ahead and try and pass Kobe's record of modern day record of 81. So that's, it is what it is there. But the last thing I want to go ahead and touch on with you, my friend, is 100, Wilt's 100. Again, there's no video of it, which is just such a sad thing to say. I mean, I did speak to someone actually who's a follower of the Lakers Fast Break, Craig. Big shout out to you, Craig, who actually was listening to Chick Hearn on a Lakers game, but he was also translating play by play what was going on in that game. As far as so the radio audience for the Lakers knew exactly what was going on in that game for Wilt's 100 game. But be that as it may, is 100 approachable? I said earlier this week after seeing Bam Adebayo 83, I'm going to say yes, it is. And I'm going to say who's going to do it. And I think after, we've seen, I know he's gotten a couple of 38-point games in the past week or whatnot. It's easy to say it. It's like low hanging fruit, but with the skill set he has, Matt, with the things he can do, if you feed him enough lobs, if he gets hot from three, and if he goes to the line enough, I think Victor Wembanyama could be that guy that gets 100 on a random night in February or March.
And supporting that point is that I feel like, just in general about can someone catch Wilt's 100, I feel like we are seeing more high octane scoring performances over the past several years. So I do think, yes, it's in the realm of possibility. And I do think Wembanyama is a pretty solid candidate. Like when the Spurs beat the Celtics, he just went off from three. Like the Celtics, that was their strategy was we'll let Wemby beat us from three. But I do think there will come a point in time where like the Spurs will face a team at like as bad as the Wizards are, maybe even worse. And that's the other thing. The only way these kind of things happen is if a team that good is facing a team that bad, like who wants to lose. Like that is what will lead to a 100-point performance. Like I guess like to kind of wrap a bow around this, it's more impressive that like one could argue it's more impressive that Wembanyama did that against the Celtics than Bam did that against the Wizards, even if it was historic, because that performance helped the Spurs beat a really good team. Like so that's what makes it. That's one could argue that's what makes it more respectable.
Expansion is around the corner, most likely.
Oh yeah,
So I'll just leave it at that.
bring back the Sonics.
There you go. Absolutely. Okay. Victor Wembanyama scored 100 points today on Las Vegas. Right there for you. Yeah, I am expecting to read that headline in about 3 or 4 years. I'll just leave it there. But before we head on out, it is time for the cheap plug. Matt, I know you do some great work. I've read several of your articles over the past year. It's been just a tremendous honor and pleasure having you on as much as you can. What are you working on as we're closing out the final 15 games of the season at the J Notes?
Well, the J notes, I'm folks like it's hard. It's hard because the Jazz, they obviously aren't one of the best teams right now, but a lot of people are looking towards the future, and that's what my focus is on. Is not just how it's finally coming to an end, but we're also thinking about the future and how exciting it is, but how much caution the Jazz must have as they're trying to build their next winner.
Absolutely. So go ahead and make sure you stop by the J Notes. Actually, again, if things go right, well, of course, if things go wrong, you're losing a lot more. But also as well, you're keeping that pick because it has to be beyond number 8, 1 to 8, correct?
Yes.
Okay, 1 to 8, and if it falls in the right spot, it could really mean some depth. We went into it a couple times ago as far as what the future may hold. But Ace Bailey's had a couple of interesting games. Even let's say it falls to number 2. Do you go after a shooting guard, even though Ace Bailey is starting to play closer to the guy you might have drafted?
I think if I'm the Jazz, because actually Tony Jones brought this up last night, this window that they're about to open, it's actually not going to be open for long. So if I were Utah, I'd just go for best player available, even if that's a shooting guard. I think Ace Bailey, like for as talented as he is, part of his appeal as a player is how versatile he is as well. I think that he can basically do what he can play whichever position the Jazz put him in because they're not going to be able to keep this core that they want to build for longer than 2 seasons. And once they do, they're going to have to trade some players. And so just getting the most talented player available will help kind of ease the sting of when they have to trade some of those guys.
Well, we will definitely see. And again, the race towards the bottom is becoming just as interesting as the race to the top, indeed. But please go ahead and support Matt by stopping on by the J Notes at thejnotes.com, part of a fans-sided experience. Indeed, fan-sided experience right there for you, thejnotes.com. Matt, it's great to have you back. Glad you're feeling at least a little bit better, enough to stop on by. Any last thoughts before we head on out?
Like off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything. I will say this, since this is a Lakers podcast, it looks like they are starting to play better, and part of me wonders if it's really. I used to think it would be, but part of me starting to think it might not be that big of a loss if y'all lose LeBron James this summer.
There's a large portion of the fan base that agrees with you that will not be brokenhearted by a departure. I just think it's time. Whether you follow the stats and it's 9-2 with Austin and Luka without LeBron, whether you believe into that, it's for or not, or you believe in the big, it's just time. It's just time, I think, for LeBron, the whole LeBron James experience to move on. I think with all the noise, with all the extra stuff, Some people have asked for, okay, what if you sign him to the veterans minimum? I don't think he'll go for that. I think he's going to go ring chasing, and he's going to go ring chasing somewhere else. He might go back to Cleveland, or I just don't think it's best for the development of both his final part of his career and also the Lakers' advancement with Luca to have him on board one more year. I just don't think it's in the best interest of both.
I'm surprised by how badly this experiment worked out. I was like all for it when hearing that LeBron and Luka would be teammates, but I'm just like, no, I think this it's run its course. It does sound like the Lakers kind of started distancing themselves from LeBron when they made the Luka trade.
Yes.
So like the only situation that definitely should resolve itself now, even though it won't, is Giannis and the Bucks. But it does sound like LeBron and the Lakers, like it's over. And I think their play without him this season has proven that it's not like him leaving Cleveland in 2018 where they instantly became a lottery team. I do think the Lakers will probably be better off once that circus is finally over, once and for all.
I agree with you. I just think it's just time for both parties to move on. And then when it comes to Giannis as well, I know some people are starting to, envision that's a possibility because the Lakers on draft day will have technically 3 first round draft choices they can trade that day because they have to draft the first pick, their first round pick, but they can trade that pick once they make it along with 2 others. I just don't think that they have enough. I just don't, unless Milwaukee is somehow infatuated with Austin Reeves, and then they could sign him, do a sign and trade or something like that. Unless that happens, I just don't see it. I just don't see if Giannis, they're obviously going to try and make a push to get Giannis somewhere else in the summer, and I just don't think the Lakers have enough unless the Lakers somehow get another cheap deal like they got against Dallas. And I just don't. I think the whole league will be up in arms if they'll say something's fishy. They'll say, okay, the Clippers an aspiration. Okay, that's fishy, but this will be fishy if the Lakers get like, let's say Giannis for 1 first rounder, and whatnot. Yeah, that would be there would be an outrage, I think, if that's the case.
Well, my bold prediction is that I don't think the Lakers will get Giannis, but I think when the NBA voids Kawhi's contract with the Clippers, I think he's going to the Lakers once that happens. Like, that's my prediction.
Well, he doesn't have to move the helicopter pad if that's the case. So
yeah. He loves LA too much. I think they didn't want to play with LeBron, but once LeBron's out of the picture, now it makes more sense for Kawhi to join the Lakers.
It would be different, and I think it's a little bit. He's having the best year of his career because he's healthy.
Don't think that's coincidence.
Yeah, don't think it's coincidence at all, and it doesn't get by me at all in that one. You're right, but he is having a great career, and he does play a little bit different of a style. He's no longer the top flight defender that he once was. And then, although again, he may show it out in a playoff run. So we'll have to wait and see. He may just be saving it for the playoffs. But again, like you said, if his contract gets voided, if he gets suspended for the year, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I am of the ilk of that. If the league does not throw down the hammer, especially with what Pablo Torre has found out, which was so funny because again, the last clue, I don't know if you're aware of the last clue. They were at a conference. Pablo Torre finds out, did a live show earlier at that same hall in the same chairs. Adam Silver was there doing an addressing to the crowd as well. And taped underneath was about as close as you're going to get to the smoking gun because it was an affidavit stating from an employee of Aspiration that the Clippers did intend or did act out on circumventing the salary cap. It's hilarious. And it was taped under there while Adam Silver was speaking, and he never knew that whole
time. Joe Smith, but what happened with Joe Smith, the Timberwolves, that's the bar. And I get it. It's LA, but I think that
it shouldn't be an excuse. I don't care if it's the Lakers. I'm sorry. I'm mad. If it's the Lakers, the Celtics, the Jazz, I don't care. It's just wrong. It's just like PPP loan, the PPP loan thing that Jeannie says she swears she didn't know, or somebody on the Lakers. I wanted them to throw the book at the Lakers on that. I was so mad because it ruins the integrity of the organization and the game when you do stuff like this, man.
Very much so. The real shame of it to me about Kawhi is that it's very clearly one of those examples of you have the wrong person in your what is it, your camp.
Mm-hmm.
And like his uncle, I think, has kind of been a horrible influence on him. And now he's going to have to pay he's probably still going to get paid anyway, but it's amazing to me when that whole thing first happened back in 2019, everyone thought Clippers dynasty on the way. They're going to be amazing. I think realistically speaking, this was the worst turnout anyone could have expected from this situation. Like, I don't know how it could have gone any worse for them. I mean, obviously they could have been one of the worst team in the NBA, but I don't think anyone expected that. But no championships, one Western Conference Finals appearance. Kawhi spent so much time on the shelf, and now it turns out that you broke the rules to get him. Like this, even though this, obviously there have been worse, but I think as far as like what you expected when you first made this happen, this is a disaster.
The Clippers were tampering with him leading back to the days at San Antonio with his trainer involved on that. Yeah, Pablo Torre, shout out to him. Pablo Torre, find out, has got several episodes on the details as far as how long this has taken place. So if you want to check it out, guys, it's worth the entire listen for all the episodes that are there. And you're right, Matt. Although with one caveat, like you said, that trade, for Paul George, and then it was essentially for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard to go to the Clippers on that. It may have created a dynasty. It may have created a dynasty, but not for LA Clippers. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, like LeBron and the Lakers, that didn't exactly go as well as probably many would have hoped. But at the same time,
Agreed.
championship, you can't take it away. People criticize the bubble, but still, it's a title. And LeBron, for all the drama he brings you titles. So, and that's something that the Lakers can always say to the warts and all, we got one, and that's all that matters. Maybe we could have had more, but you should look at it as the glass half empty. Of at least we got one. The Clippers never came close.
Yes, never came close. And I get asked that, because people are just a lot of our fan base are tired of LeBron, and I have got asked that last week. I get asked that every now and then, but at the latest I got asked that question last week, and I'll say it every single time. Would I trade, not having LeBron for having LeBron? And I would say no. I would have to go through what we've been through the entire time because it brought us a world championship. And like you said, how many teams have won a world championship? How many teams would like to have won a world championship under any circumstances with any player? I think a lot of those teams out there in the NBA that haven't won a championship would trade quite a bit to have that opportunity. And trust me, yeah, I know how hard it is for a team to go all the way to win a title. I'm not taking that in any doubt whatsoever. And I would definitely take that back. I would definitely have the LeBron James experience all over again, just because we won a title with it, man.
You can't argue with the results, and best of all, I guess more Lakers fans, they're done with LeBron. They're like, okay, this ran its course. We're fine with that. How do Clippers fans feel about how this is all unfolding? Do they feel do they really want this to end, or do they wanted to keep going with how well he's played?
Yeah, I hear they're between a rock and a hard place. I mean, they started off so bad, so they wanted them to tank, but then they started to do so well, and they wanted to go as far as they could. But then because James Harden had issues with the Clippers, they ended up trading Harden and Zubac. So then they wanted to tank again, but they don't tank. They're winning, so now they're actually at 500. Who knows? They can't even make up their own mind. Oh, but one last thing. Actually, I just came across the news wire. Dwight Howard hadn't retired until today. Never filed the formal paperwork until today to retire. And he does so on a day that TMZ reported earlier, or less than a week ago, that a female in a Camaro took jewelry and his wedding ring. So on a day where he officially announced his retirement, it also comes out that he's had some trouble. That's just Dwight Howard in a nutshell, and also his free throw record. He had the free throw record until Bam Adebayo beat that as well, man.
Oh man, I mean, what can you say? Like Dwight Howard, it's kind of sad how like his rep kind of stunk him. Like he should have been on the NBA's top 75. I don't even think that's an argument. Like we've forgotten how good he was when he was in Orlando, but like because of all the drama that's kind of happened since he left Orlando, it kind of sunk him as a player and and basically just in the locker room because what I understand, every team that got rid of him up until when he rejoined the Lakers was like, yeah, bye. Like, but yeah, it all fits with Howard's character after everything that's went down.
Very true, very true. But I am grateful for what he did in the bubble with the Lakers championship, indeed. But Matt John is here. Please go ahead and check him out. His work right there at the J Notes at thejnotes.com. Part of the Fan Sided Experience, indeed. Well, Matt, great to have you back. Looking forward to our conversation next week where it's going to be even closer. It's going to be closer to 10 games left in the regular season. So yeah, we're have to get ready, get our playoff mode going. I mean, it'll be March Madness next week. So we're gonna have to start looking at the guys available for the draft. I already see signs that the Thunder could have 2 picks in the first round. I could see, things like as far as Indiana, with Halliburton coming back, getting AJ DeBanza or Darren Peterson. Oh my gosh. And again, we're going to have to check all this stuff out. A lot of stuff still going on in the NBA. And of course, Matt is always here trying to go ahead and provide you with the best in NBA observations.